This is Unit 3, Lesson 1. The second activity in this lesson is fitting lines to data. So today we're going to be learning about how to use the calculator to fit data to a line. And this works when you have what's called two variable data. And variables called two variable if you're given an x and a y. So let's go through the steps. So I've outlined the steps here, and I'm going to walk you through on the calculator what you need to do. So everything is going to be using the stat key right here for the most part. So you click on the stat key and you have a couple different menu options. Today we're going to be using the edit menu and the calc menu. The first thing you want to do is you want to edit, you want to put your information into a list, into L1 and L2. So you go to stat, you can hit 1 for edit or just click enter and it'll take you to your list. Now you can see here that this calculator was used for a previous problem, and the data that we have listed here does not match the data that we have in our table. So what you can do is you can either delete each entry one by hitting delete, 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 or you can tab over to the top and hit clear and then hit enter. Okay? What you don't want to do is tab up to the top and then hit delete, because what that'll do is that'll actually delete the whole list, which will cause problems later. So if you find that you're deleting all of your lists, it should say L1, then L2, then L3. What you can do is go back to the stat key and go to 5 for Setup Editor and run that program. And what that will do is that'll recreate, when you go back to your stat edit, your list 1 and list 2, it'll recreate your L1, L2, and L3. That's important to know because sometimes if that's not up correctly, you'll get error messages when you go to do the operation on your calculator. So we're going to put our information in. So in our x values, let me just annotate this x. In our x values, so these are our x values. That's what we're going to put in our L1. So that would be for our number of phones sold, goes in L1. So over to our calculator, we could type these in. So we could type in a 2, enter 4, enter 6, enter 8, enter. Okay, into our L1. And then over on our L2, we're going to put our y values. So in our y values, we're going to be putting in our L2. And it's important that the values we have selected match up with each other. So the 2 and the 600, they're going to go across from each other. So across from the 2, you want to type in your 600. Okay, they have to match together. They're two variable data. They're buddies. They go together. And then 960. Okay. 1320. 1320. And 1680. Okay, so that's our first step. Put this into L1 and L2. Okay, I'm going to snag this and drag it over here just so we can save it for later. L1 and L2. That's our first step. Okay, our next step is then we're just going to click, we're going to go back to our stat menu. We're going to put stat and then calculate. We're going to go to our stat button and go to our calculate menu, and we have all these options for stuff we can do with our data. So this unit is on linear equations, so we're going to select linear regression. Now there are two options for this. The only difference is one has the constant term last and the second one has the constant term first. We've learned both of these forms, but for the most part, most of the time we use this form mx plus b, so we're going to be actually using that option to find our linear regression line. Okay, so I'm going to snag this and put it here just so we have it. Okay, that's our next option. And then we're going to click enter. And you'll go to this screen right here, and you want to run this program. What this does is it runs the program for your data, and then your line pops up. So there we have our line. Okay, now this might not look in the form that we're used to seeing it, but what we can do is this tells us that we have the linear regression. A is 180, and B is 240. So we go to write our equation, y equals, basically saying blank x plus blank, right? And we can substitute in our A and our B values. So let's go ahead. This is how I write on my paper. I would say A is 180. Okay, 80x, and then B is 240. Okay. Now, if B, your y-intercept value ended up being negative, that would be a subtract symbol. So that's your equation. The last thing you can do just to kind of make sure that this looks the way it matches the data is you can actually plot this line and plot the data that you were given originally. So since our data is already saved in our L1 and L2, we go to y equals, we can turn our plot one on. Okay, we can turn our plot one on. and then we could plug in our equation into y equals. I'm going to snag this and put it right down here. Good one. Down here. And make sure your window is set up appropriately. So for my window, I went from -1 to 10, and then my y max was all the way up to 2,000 because my value kind of goes up very high. So that's what I would have for my window, and I guess I'll snag that too. Let me snag this too, so we can have that later on when we need it. And then we can hit graph, and you can see that it's all plotted. Oh, my plots are turned off. So you want to make sure that would be our line, and if you want to see your plots, you want to make sure that this is selected up here. Enter, select, turn your plots on, and then hit graph. And there we go. You see your plots, you see your line will fit through those plots. So we know it's a pretty good line of best fit. Okay? So just to kind of recap everything that we've done here, let's zoom out so you can see all our steps. So we went through our step 1 was to do stat edit. We put in our top list L1, L2, X, and then Y. Our second menu we used was the calc menu. We selected 4 for linear regression. We came up with our equation. Then we checked our equation by plotting the data and the line.